Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to talk about how to do a Mongol Tower Rush, and we're going to be focusing on how you get into a nice feudal age with good timing. And in this build order, I'm also going to be explaining why we do the different things, the decision-making part of it, and how the different matchups work. Because you cannot do Mongol Tower Rushing against every single civs. There are some civs where it gets more complicated. That is linked in the description as well, in the build order. But the civs that we're talking about is obviously Ottomans. Ottomans, you usually have a harder time doing the Tower Rush. You'll be focusing more on spearmen play in the Dark Age. When you're playing against English and Rus, you'll find that the Tower Rush is not as effective because Rus doesn't gather gold and English has short bows on their villages. There are also other matchups, but we'll talk about them if needed. Right, let's get into it. So the build order is linked in the description below, so you can follow along and practice on your own. And yeah. Let's go. The first thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be popping your maneuver arrow on your Khan. You're going to be sending 5 villagers over to a straggler tree. 1 villager goes to the stone. You send your TC always on the wood line. And then you want to see if you can get a second resource. So here I would place it on the berries, since our gold is in the front. And our stone is up here. So don't try to send your TC all the way up here. Just go for what's closest. You don't want to be spending too much time doing all this, so get used to it. Try it out yourself. And lastly, the gur. Because we're gathering from a straggler tree, you should try to place the gur beside it. It looks something like this. Maneuver arrow. I drag box select everything. I take and put the TC down. Then I take the 5 villagers on the straggler tree. 1 goes towards the stone. Gur is placed. Khan goes forward. Queue up villages the moment this is up. There you go. Start building the oval. This needs to be practiced. You cannot spend too long on this. You want to have all of these things done so that you don't lose villagers. The TC has to be up at least before 20 seconds in, so you don't lose more than 1 villager. And these guys here have to not go on the wood line. They have to go on a straggler tree. It's really important that we do this because it minimizes time spent here. We want to be as effective as possible with the Tower Rush, because if we are not, then it loses its value and they're going to get feudal and archers out, and then we don't even get our tower up. So we want to be as fast as possible. You go forward with your Khan. You want to scout where the enemy gold is. We found that the gold here, and we see that he's going for multiple towers. Sorry, not towers, houses. What this indicates is that he's probably going to make a barracks or a tower. If he makes a tower, that's fine. If he makes a barracks, then we cannot make a tower. Why? Because the time that it takes for our spearmen to go to his base and to try to attack the gold and get the tower up, that's enough time for him to get enough spearmen to defend. And here he's playing Malian, so he also has the spear throw, making it basically impossible for us to get a tower up. So you just go for your 4 spearmen, and then you provoke him. You want to make a lot of spearmen, so he stays in the Dark Age longer, and then you spend the wood on something else. So that's how you read this. They're on wood. They're probably going to make a barracks. You can see this pretty early as well. Here we cannot because of the Malians needing wood for a pit mine. At about 58 seconds in, you want to be building the barracks. Try to get it about a minute. That's fine. You can tell your Ovu villager up here to go on the wood line, and then they won't go back before you have the wood to build the barracks. So what happens here is, once you've gathered a full straggler tree, so that's 3 rounds for those 5 villages, they have enough wood to build the barracks. And you've been rallying onto food with your TC. After that, once those 150 wood have been gathered, you take your 3 villages, put them on the wood line, you take 2 of the villages from the 5, and you put them over to the sheep. So you go 3 in wood until you have enough for a tower, and then a total of 4 spearmen, which means you need to gather 140 wood. Let's go. TC still rallied onto food. We'll keep rallying onto food until we have that wood we talked about before, the 140, so we can make the tower and the spearmen. And then after, the 3 villages here go on gold. That will give you a nice timing so that you can get to feudal age quickly. If you gather too much food or too much wood that you don't need here, then we will have a very slow feudal age, and we don't want that. Remember to use your Khan to also get sheep. You want to find your enemy's base, where to attack with spears, and then get it back around, get the sheep. Then we queue our spearmen the moment we can. So if you time it well, you should be able to queue the spearmen just when you get enough stone to go for the double production. I wouldn't recommend building more spearmen in the meantime. Just go for the 2 times double production. Send the spearmen to the enemy gold. Try to get some damage in. Use your movement speed arrow again. Try to use this as often as possible. And then don't use it as often as possible once you start to have a lot of army you want to move around. Alright. So if we take a look at the wood, we now have 100. You can send a villager with the second batch of spearmen that will come out in a second. And then you can build the tower and so on. The first are just there to do damage. You can send the villager earlier if you feel like it. It's all up to you. Burn down the pit mine with the spearmen. And then try not to take too much damage. Here, he brings out the Donzos. I have not scouted the barracks, but I had a feeling that he was going to go for it. And so he did. He went for the Donzos. You want him to make more than just 1 Donzo, so don't go back immediately. Stay there, force him to make at least like 3-4 Donzos. And then don't lose your spearmen yourself. You want to keep these alive. You're now on gold after. If you want to see when I switch these around, just check the build order in the description. All the timestamps, all the macro, so villager splits and so on, is all described there. So just check that out. Spearman can go back now. When he has 3 Donzos like this, that is not a fight I can take at all. They have 1 melee armor and they can throw javelins. So the perfect defensive spearman for the Dark Age. So we just go back, we defend. The time that it took him to make 3 spearmen is also the time we needed to get to 3,900 gold on our gold vein. When we have 3,900 gold, we also have enough food. So you can drop off your food here, and then you can age up. Age up with 3 gold vills, and then 2 food vills. Or just pull 5 villagers, and then go on to wood. The splits for your feudal age should be 5 to build the deer stones or silver tree, depending on what you feel like. 5 on wood, and then you go rest to food until you have 11 on food. If you are now being pushed, that's okay. You can move your buildings back. Maybe you lose your Ovu if you go straight for it and you cannot kill his spearmen because he has made 10 spearmen. Well, that's a good thing because you made him make 10 spearmen and now you're going next stage. The Ovu doesn't matter too much. You can always rebuild it, though it's better to not lose it, of course. Pull your Ovu and your barracks back if he goes for it, and then keep them safe within your TC's defensive area. Just keep going back and forth here. Keep proking and prodding, because what you want to do here is you want him to stay off the Ovu. You want to get to feudal age, and you're going to get to feudal age very quickly. Then once you get to feudal age, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be having enough wood to go for an immediate stable and archer range. And so you build that stable and archer range with your age up villagers, because then in this situation we can get archers out enough with enough speed to take out the Donzos, and we'll get the stable to start raiding right after. As for the rest of the macro should be 11 on food, and then you take your age of vills, you build your stable and archer range, put them to gold, and then so you have 11 on food, you have 7 on wood, 5 to 7, depending on how much wood you've gathered before this, and then 5 on gold. Alright, so you take your Ovu back to the gold. Try to keep your deer stones so that your villagers are all within the vicinity. Keep going back and forth. Try to keep him here so that you can get your archers out. If you are playing against an opponent that's playing very defensive, here he's not playing defensive, he's obviously playing offensive. But let's say he goes with a defensive landmark. You can go more greedy, and you can build double production of villagers if you feel like it. You can also do double production of traders, but the safest bet is to do double production of archers. You get the most value from building archers with the double production instead of spearmen, because he already knows you have spearmen. You want to go into archers and then keshiks after. Keshiks are very expensive to do double production of, and you're probably better off using the stone to go for archers or more eco. So if you have your TC on the stone, let's say we'd put the TC up here, wouldn't have been a bad position. Then we would have stone to produce double production of villagers. And you can get very far ahead that way. That means that you don't have to go trade. And now you can use those resources on still getting an eco advantage. Once you have 2 archers, start pushing him back, trying to see if you can get some damage. Upgrade your own spearmen. And then go into keshiks, archers, and spearmen. See if you can keep these up to about full production. If it's possible, try to burn down the pit mine. If there is a defensive landmark here, that's fine. We just try to contain him in his base, and then we go for trade instead. If somebody goes for a trade landmark, sorry, a defensive landmark, we can usually try to boom a little bit as well. So what I do here is I add a market. And by the way, this is now when the build order sort of ends. Once you're in feudal age and you've got your 3 military buildings. It ends here because most games look wildly different to this one. And so this will not be a one-size-fit-all. But this is how you get into feudal age at a nice pace and getting production so you are able to produce enough military as well. So from here, move into the feudal age, go trade, go for a second CC if you need it. Usually trade is better, and then just go full production. Try to contain your opponent. Here I'm looking for the trade post. I want to find it where it is. So I found it here, which means the opposite one is down here. And so I place my market up in this corner so that it's the furthest away from him and that the trade is the safest. If I was trading to this one up here, it would be easier for him to raid. Alright, so now we're 9 minutes into the game. We have 30 military units. He only has 17. And so when we have that many, he cannot move out of his base, which means now we can go greedy with the trade. Because now we have a tempo lead. This doesn't mean that you can just go into his base. Let's say he went out now, and he just lost all of these units. Sure, you can go and finish the game, kill the villagers, fine. But you definitely want to just... Don't get complacent, just be playing it safe. Just go around your opponent's base, look for raids with your keshiks, and then set up the trade. Your only goal is to set up the trade. That's the way you scale, that's the way you win. But if you can find a victory earlier through taking a good fight and then exploiting that advantage you get from winning a fight, you can go castle, you can go and double down on the military production, or even more traders, go for another market. That's all good. You can try that. But it requires that we don't overgreed here. So if we don't have enough military units to defend the greed, then we should not be greeding. So always try to find some value. Keep your military units busy. Set up your trade. It doesn't matter if you start trading at 10 minutes or if you start trading at 6 minutes with Silver Tree. What matters most is that you just keep the tempo up and you don't just sit back in your base and you allow them to do whatever they want to. You want to keep applying pressure, give them the impression that you're there, and then if they move out of their base like this, then you can look for fight. Especially if you have calculated that you have enough military units. So here I see what types of military units he's gone for. Mostly Donzos and then some javelin throwers. I'm getting my +1 ranged attack, which is going to be very good when dealing with the javelins if they don't have +1 ranged armor themselves. He's getting that now, so my archers won't be as good. Now, I'm going to be trying to see if I can take a fight here, but I'm not fast enough. In the base, we've gone for deers. Don't be afraid to move out on the map. Usually with Mongols, you have the map control. If you don't, you're doing something wrong. Blacksmith, get upgrades. Just keep these up here at the obu. When the obu runs out, immediately build a new one. And if you have a big stone close, obviously use that one. There's some upgrades you want to get from the obu. One of them is the improved raid bounty or stone bounty. These give you a lot of resources. This one you can get in the feudal age. The other one is one you get in the imperial age. So that one is obviously not available until we get to that point. You should just go for the raid bounty. That's great. If you find a pit mine and he can't defend it, you'll get 150 resources for every single house that he made. So that's 25 resources he spends, well, you get 150. So raid bounty is very strong. You can also go for the whistling arrows or the superior mobility if you want to move your markets a little bit faster. Could be a good idea to go for that one if you know that you might have to move your trade later. Take a good fight here. It's mostly spearmen he has. And so we have a lot of archers. We take out all the archers. We force him back into his base. Just see if you can do as much damage as possible. Just focus down archers and leave the jav throwers for the last. Now he's lost a lot of military. We're still very far ahead. We can use that advantage we just gained from this fight to make a lot of traders. So we have 2 markets. They're making traders. We're also moving out and finding more deer. We're going to the wood here. We haven't gone for pastures because we can just go for the pocket resources of the deer or boar or berries. But if we had stone clothes or it was just not really possible for us because we didn't have any safe pocket resources and he still had a lot of military, obviously go pastures. Always scout if you lose your Khan. Just see if you can pressure a bit with your Keshiks. Don't pressure with all your units. Just use your Keshiks to raid, like this. So you can get out again. Second Ovo is now coming up. Blacksmith is put onto the Ovo, so you can go for improved siege engineering. This is good if you go into Castle Age. You can use this siege engineering to build mangonels and springles in the field. Here we find his pit mine. He wants to defend the pit mine. And we got a Khan. I lose my Khan, but I managed to pop the maneuver arrow. And then I get on top of his units here, and I take out most of them. So basically here, I know that I have all these units, and this was probably everything he had. And so for me, the game is in a very good state for me, because I have a lot of traders. I have 10 traders in total, and each of these bring in about more than 75 resources. My economy is untouched. I have upgrades coming in, and I had pretty good production here, double stable. But because he lost all of his military, I can actually finish the game right here. Just by going into his base now, because he lost all of his military units, I can finish the game by killing all of his villagers. Obviously, if you're playing usually in lower leagues, what happens is people don't quit. They just sit in the TCs. You don't want to lose everything by standing on the TCs and idling him because he doesn't surrender or whatever. Just go back again, keep trade booming, go Castle Age, and then get your man-at-arms with ranged armor or your rams in Feudal Age. You can do many things. So, play it safe, and when there is a possibility for victory, go for it. Alright, that's it for me. The build order is linked in the description. If you have any questions, ask them in the comment section below, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. See you in the next one. Ciao.